Hi, by the way, I'm Klent reoja. I'll be tackling the topic bombing investigation. So let us proceed. What is bombing investigation? The investigation conducted at the scene of an explosion or bombing in an uncovering the truth about the incident. So the investigators will conduct an investigation regarding the explosion or bombing incident to uncover the truth or what happened during the incident. So here are the guides for explosion and bombing investigation. We have 6 subtopics that we're going to talk about. So, Section A, recurring equipment and tools. Section B, prioritizing initial response efforts. Section C, evaluating the scene. Section D, documenting the scene. Section E, which is processing evidence of the scene. And last is the Section F, which is the completing and recording the scene investigation. So let us start in Section A, which is the procuring uh, equipment and tools. Possessing the proper tools and equipment is key to any task, and never more so than in emergency situations such as explosion or bombing scenes. Because the responders and investigators may not know the details about the situation. Until arriving at the scene, prior preparation is vital. So the vital is first the safety. So these are the equipment tools that we will use, uh, such as biohazard materials, bags, tags, labels. Second, first aid kit, footwear, glasses, gloves or surgical gloves, helmets or hard hats, knee pads, outerwear. So those are safety equipments that we will use. Second, the general crime scene tools equipment. So these are the tools that. Uh, so here is the scene documentation. The tools that we use: compass, computer and computer aided designs, consent to search forms, drawing equipment, especially sketchbooks and pencils, uh, measuring equipment, photographic equipment, tape recorder, and cassettes. So these tools that we will use in order to document scenes. Right. So next is the evidence collection, such as bags, boxes, brushes and brooms, evidence flags, evidence placards, evidence tags. Those are the examples of evidence collection. Next. Next is specialized equipment, aerial survey or photography equipment, such as helicopter, uh, chemical test kits and vapor detectors, construction equipment, recovery equipment. So those are the specialized equipment. Next, let us proceed to section B, which is the prioritizing initial response efforts. Conduct a preliminary evaluation of the scene. So, first responders, the first public safety personnel to arrive at the scene, whether law enforcement officers, firefighters, or emergency medical services or EMS personnel, must assess the scene quickly yet thoroughly to determine the course of action to be taken. Next is this exercise scene safety. Safety overrides all other concerns. First, responders must take steps to identify and remove or mitigate safety hazards that may further threaten victims, bystanders, and public safety personnel. They must exercise due caution while performing emergency operations to avoid injuries to themselves and others. Next is the administer life-saving efforts. First responders' primary responsibility is to rescue living victims and provide treatment for life-threatening injuries. While performing emergency operations, they are to preserve evidence and avoid disturbing areas not directly involved in the rescue activities. So including those areas containing fatalities. Next is establish security and control. First responders will establish, control, and restrict area access to essential personnel, thereby aiding rescue efforts and scene preservation. First responders will initiate documentation. Next is the section C, which is the evaluating the scene. First, define the investigator role. So the investigator must coordinate with the incident commander and first responders to determine what occurred and to access or to assess the current situation. Subsequent to section C, evaluating the scene. Define the investigator role. The investigator must coordinate with the incident commander and first responders to determine what occurred and to assess the current situation. Subsequent procedures will vary depending on the magnitude of the incident. So, second, ensure scene integrity. The investigator must ensure the integrity of the scene by establishing security perimeters and staging areas, contamination control procedures, and evidence collection and control procedures. Next. Third is conduct the scene walkthrough. The investigator must conduct a walkthrough to establish a scene, parameters, and acquire an overview of the incident. Fourth, secure required resources. Following the walkthrough, the investigator should meet with available emergency responders and investigate personnel to determine what resources, equipments, and additional personnel may be needed. And now, here's the section D, documenting the scene. Develop written documentation. So, the investigator will prepare written scene documentation to become part of the permanent record. Okay. So, the second is photograph or videotape the scene. The investigator must ensure that photographic documentation is included in the permanent scene record. This documentation should be completed prior to the removal or disturbance of any victims. Third, locate and interview victims and witnesses. The investigator will obtain victims or witnesses' identities, statements, and information concerning their injuries. Next. Now, section E, processing evidence at the scene. First, assemble the evidence processing team. Effective organization and composition of the evidence processing team ensures proper collection and preservation of evidence. Second, organize evidence processing. Good organization is essential to evidence collection and preservation. The investigator must continually evaluate the scene, adapt to changes as they occur, and brief the team. Next. The third is control contamination. Preventing contamination protects the integrity of the scene and other search areas. The integrity of the evidence or for forensic analysis and the safety of personnel. And fourth, identify, collect, preserve, inventory, package, and transport evidence. So the search focuses on the discovery of physical evidence. Fourth, identify, collect, preserve, inventory, package, and transport evidence. The search focuses on the discovery of physical evidence that may establish that a crime was committed and link elements of the crime to possible suspects. So, here are last subtopic, which is the section F, completing and recording the scene investigation. Number one is that ensure that all investigative steps or the here are our last subtopics. Section F, completing recording the scene investigation. First, ensure that all investigative steps are documented. To ensure that the permanent record will be complete, the investigator should review all the documentation before releasing the scene. Second is that ensure that scene processing is complete. The scene may be released only upon conclusion of the on-site investigation and a through evidence collection process. Third is that release the scene. The release of the scene must be documented. The investigator should ensure communication of known scene-related health and safety issues to receiving authority at the time of release. Fourth is that submit reports to the appropriate national databases. Detailed technical information regarding explosive devices collected, integrated, and disseminated via national databases. These data help authorities identify the existence of serial bombers, the sophistication of explosive device being used, and the need for uniform procedures and further development of equipment. So that's all. Thank you. To conclude, bombing investigation requires practicality and direct documentation. So I hope you guys learned the lesson that I talk about. And thank you for listening.